Before you set up your gradebook, you'll need to think about a few things ahead of time. Which categories, like quizzes, exams, or individual items, will need to be included? How will the categories be weighted, or will there be categories? And will items be created through Katie, like the assignment or quiz or forum module, or will students be completing the work in other ways? Will they be working in Norse apps and sharing a document with you as a Google document, for example? Once you've thought through that, the first thing that you'll want to do is start with your syllabus and go through each item and determine how each item is going to be turned in. So for my class, I have this 5-minute focused writing assignments where students take 5 minutes at the beginning of class to do a short reflection. For this, I'm going to do this as a single Katie forum. So this will be one single Katie forum. That's worth 100 points. For the response assignments, they will be doing 2 reading response assignments that they will turn in via Katie. So I'll need to make assignments in Katie for this. For this category here called class assignments, this is really participation. So this will be a participation grade that I'm going to add as I transfer my class to online. So this isn't anything they'll be turning in via Katie, which is an important thing to note. Next, for their project proposal, they'll turn in 1 project proposal worth 30 points. I'm changing that from this initial 3 phases worth 10 points to just once. For the research journal, I'm going to grade 2 submissions, but this research journal they won't be turning in via Katie. This is going to be something they do in a Google document. These project sources are for assignments. Those will be turned in via Katie through the assignment module. The presentation, students will be recording this and sharing a link with me from their Google Drive. So this is not something they will turn in via Katie. So I'm going to create this as a separate item in the Katie Gradebook. And finally, the final project is a portfolio that they'll be putting together and submitting to me. This is also something that they will not be completing through Katie. So I've got all that set. Now it's time to actually start setting up the gradebook. In your course, go to the gear icon and choose Gradebook Setup. If you've started to add assignments, modules, forums to your course, you might see a few things here. If you haven't, this is going to be blank. For me, the first thing that I see is I've got this syllabus quiz, which is something that I have asked students to complete, but it's not something that's on my list here of graded items. It doesn't count at all towards their final grade. So for that, if you have items that are like that, just click this and set it to 0. You'll see that right now I've got 256 points as a total in the class. For this, I'm just going to set the weight of that to 0. And now I've got 255 points. This is no longer counting in my Katie Gradebook. So if you've got things in there that you don't want to count, check this and set that weight to 0. Next, it's time to start creating categories. So the first thing I've got is the 5-minute focus writing assignments. This is a single forum that I have here in the class. Don't need to create anything for that. It's already here because I created it out on my main course page. Next, I've got 2 response assignments that are worth 50 points. Each will be worth 25. I've got a single response here, but I need to create my second response assignment so that it will show up here in the Katie Gradebook. So to do that, I'm going to go out to my main course page. Here I can see I've got a section for my reading responses. This is a really neat tip. You can click Edit and then Duplicate, and it will create a copy of the assignment that you've created, and then you can just go in and edit it. So since these reading responses are really similar, I'm just going to come in here and change the title. So now if I go back to the gear icon and Gradebook Setup, I can see I've got my information cycle reading response and my source evaluation reading response, and they're each worth 25 points. If you want, you can create a category to put those in, but there's no need to do that if you're using a points-based gradebook. Next, class assignments, which as I said, I'm changing this into my participation, which is worth 100 points. So that won't be anything that they turn in via Katie. So to do that, they're not turning in anything. I just need to create an entry here in the gradebook. You will use this button here to add a grade item. I will call this participation. And I can see the maximum grade is 100%. Don't need to worry about anything else, and save changes. So now I've got my participation grade here. Project proposal, they will have a single project proposal that's worth 30 points. I've already created that on my course page, so here is the project proposal here. Next, I've got the research journal. They will have 2 grades for research journal that are each worth 10 points. So for each of these, I will add a grade item. Research journal 1, worth 10 points, and save changes. And I'll add another grade item. Research journal 2, worth 10 points, and save changes. So far I've got 400 points of my course that have been added here, things that are a mix of things they will turn in via Katie, like their reading responses, and these research journals, which I want to share the grade with them in Katie, but they won't be turning in via Katie. Next, I have 4 project sources for a total of 400 points. And I actually want to create, for this one, I'm going to create a category and call it project sources. When you create a category, don't really need to worry about anything else. If you do want to keep the highest and drop the lowest, that is something that you'll be able to do here. Save changes. Now that I've created this project sources category, I can take my first project source, the background source. I'll click this here to select it and then move that item to project sources. And now here it is. I have 3 more project sources that I want the students to complete. So that my gradebook is complete for now, I'm actually going to come out here and I'm going to duplicate my project source. Whoops, not the project proposal. Let me delete that. Yes. My project source, duplicate. So I've got a background source. I have a book source. A scholarly article source. And a web source. So after I've duplicated these, you do want to go in and take a look at the settings to make sure that you adjust. If you've enabled a due date, you've adjusted the due date, any other changes that might be different. So you want to make sure you go in and do that. But now that I've got these all completed, I'm going to go to the gear icon, go back to Gradebook Setup. And now I can see here in my project sources category are all 5 project sources for a total of 400 points. Next, I've got a presentation. This is a 5-minute presentation. They will not be turning that in via Katie, so I'm going to add this as a grade item. Presentation, worth 50 points. And lastly, I've got a final project that's worth 250 points. For this, they're not going to be turning this in via Katie, so I will add this as a grade item. Final project, 250 points. So if I take a look, I wanted my gradebook to be worth 1,000 points. There it is. It is in fact worth 1,000 points. If I decide, the first thing on my syllabus is the 5-minute focus. So I think I'm going to go ahead and move the 5-minute focus. To do this, a lot of times you'll be tempted to try to grab and drag. Doesn't work that way. Just click once on this up and down arrow, and then you'll see this kind of strange list, and you'll pick where you want this to go. So for me, I'm going to move it here at the very beginning of my syllabus. And now I've got the 5-minute focus, the information cycle reading response, the other reading response. I've got my research journal, my project sources. And you can see the nice thing about this aggregation method, which is called natural. It's what we recommend, and it's the default for all new Katie courses, is that you have the option that you can use weights if you need to, but by default, everything just goes by points. So if you see my 5-minute focus, which is 100 points, that's worth 10% of my grade. If I wanted to change that, I could come in here and click this and make this 15, scroll down and save, and it would change all of the others, all of the other percentages. So you have a lot of flexibility to move both ways. For percentages within categories, you'll see that each of these is 25% of this parent category. So 25% of the 40%. And now I've got 1,000 points. I'm all set. If I come here, scroll up to the top and click the View tab, then I can see the list of all my students, and as they start to submit assignments and I start to enter grades, those will be here. One important note, to see what your users will see, what your students will see when they click on grades over here, the user report is a great place to go. You click on the user report and you can see this is what, for right now, my students, everything's going to be empty, but they're going to see the entire skeleton for my class, and they're going to see what their total is in the class. So I can even pick a specific user and see how that student is doing in this class.